I want to say that CANSO and its members in Europe are fully committed to the single European sky, and in particular to its objectives of defragmenting airspace, improving safety, reducing costs for the airspace users, and minimising the impact on the environment. So you're right when you say it's a difficult concept and one of the biggest challenges facing ATM in Europe. But we've worked hard on this, and we have made steady progress since the first Single European Sky package was announced in 2004. We have delivered some continuous improvements in key performance areas of safety, cost efficiency, environmental impact. And we've been working very closely in partnership with each other in the ATM business, but with airspace users, airports, and the regulators and others. We continue to cooperate to develop and implement and monitor up-to-date interoperable new technologies and systems under the CESAR and ICAO strategies. Clearly, we recognise there is still much to do, and we would like to see a better regulatory framework that really enhances performance-based cooperation between air navigation service providers, and with a focus on delivery outcomes rather than prescriptive inputs of what ANSP should do in detail. We also seek a more macro approach where the European Commission sets requirements and targets so that ANSPs can implement solutions appropriate to their own circumstances and with a business-driven type of approach, rather than detailed micromanaging type of requirements and legislation. So, with regard to Single European Sky Package 2+ and its pressure on non-compliant states, of course states must comply with the European Union legislation. While the technical aspects of the Single European Sky are covered well, we're on the verge of CESAR being deployed with a very strong cooperation between all the industry partners. The main issues of the Single European Sky inevitably lie on the political and social side. This is where CANSO is putting its efforts to support our members. We need the political support for business transformation in order to allow the other deliverables of the Single European Sky to happen. And the time is now right for this. And we fully accept that change needs to come. We just have to be pragmatic and realistic. So the key to effective harmonisation in air traffic management is to have a single concept of operation globally and a single, simple infrastructure on board and on the ground. This will reduce the cost of ownership, simplify maintenance, training and modernisation and further evolution of the system. And it is necessarily in the context of the globally operating airspace users. Air traffic management is quite simply a global business and needs to be managed in that way. NextGen and CESAR are both two very, very good programs, but they must be pulled together as a key element of achieving the overall vision of seamless airspace globally. NextGen and CESAR are making some joint efforts to achieve greater harmonisation and, for example, an Atlantic interoperability initiative to reduce emissions, otherwise known as AIR. And the FAA and the CESAR joint undertaking signed a memorandum on joint R&D about 3 years ago in 2010, I believe, on interoperability between the two ATM systems and covering a whole range of issues including safety, security, environment and performance. But the coordination between the US and Europe is frankly not transparent enough, with a need for the industry to understand which specific areas require closer attention. So we would really like to see more evidence of the actual progress that's been made and the benefits that brings. It is clear that more work needs to be done. For example, we need to give more attention to common definition of words. We have different definitions of 4D trajectory, for example, in Europe and in the US. We need to agree on different data link applications and on aeronautical information management, AIM. The US and Europe quite simply have different ideas on which platform it should be used. So the cooperation between NextGen and CESAR is important in the context of the Aviation System Block Upgrades Program through ICAO. This is designed to achieve a globally harmonized framework and an interoperable air navigation system. It has been agreed as an integral part of the revised ICAO Global Air Navigation Plan. So I think that ASBU implementation should act as a genuine spur to both CESAR and NextGen to harmonise their activities. So in general, we would like to see a greater focus on harmonisation by both Europe and the US, but we do need more information on the progress and the benefits achieved so far. As you all know, the Middle East is the world's fastest growing region for aviation. But what is failing to keep pace in the region is the air traffic management at the airspace involved. It is fragmented, creating safety, efficiency and capacity challenges for the region. It is saturated with large parts of the airspace out of bounds for civilian use, and it is not adequately coordinated across the region as a whole. So unless these issues are addressed, air traffic management in the Middle East will frankly act as a major constraint on further growth and expansion of aviation and of the economies of the countries in the region. So unless we get the act together and coordination and cooperation in ATM in the Middle East, there will be the significant benefits will be jeopardized. So how do we approach that? Well, frankly, we need to put an end to fragmented initiatives on a state-by-state basis and a duplication of efforts that entails, and also the military restrictions in the region. So we need, therefore, to develop a coordinated and cohesive strategic plan for airspace management in the region. To ensure, therefore, that future air traffic management systems will be able to meet the needs of the growing region and all of the challenges involved in aviation. So one solution here is that the states to coordinate the states in much better harmonisation of their operational activities through a regional airspace initiative. But this can only be possible with the full support, politically and operationally, of all the states, air navigation service providers, airspace users, airports, and the military across the region as a whole. And that's what CANSO is working very hard to do. We're trying to drive that cooperation, but there's still a long way to go, but it's really important for the region as a whole that we succeed in achieving seamless airspace in the Middle East. Aviation System Block Upgrades, or ASBUs, provide the aviation community with suggested roadmaps on technology integration that attempts to bring the various entities together with a single focus and a harmonised goal. So ASBUs are an important vehicle to help us achieve the vision of seamless airspace globally, and implementing them is an important part of Vision 2020. It is correct and a deliberate plan that different states will implement ASBUs at different speeds. This is intentional, as ASBU implementation requires a quite measured, patient approach, and obviously from states that are in with different technologies and different degrees of maturity. But the timing of implementation of the ASBU modules is dependent on when various elements are available. So apart from the technology and procedures, the technical standards and specifications, the regulatory approval and certification processes, the training, etc. Investment and implementation decisions also need to be made on the basis of a positive business case that support the operational improvement. That requires coordination and collaboration between ANSPs, airlines, airports, military authorities, regulators, etc. It's not easy, but at least we now have a common framework, a common roadmap, and a common destination for air navigation planning and implementation. Because of the various levels of maturity, capability, airspace user requirements, and financial means, the ASBUs were designed to allow maximum flexibility in the implementation by individual states. So each air navigation service provider will develop its own needs and dependency analysis and business case in collaboration with their stakeholders to see which of the ASBU blocks and modules can best be implemented first, which provide the best return on investment, improved service, and reduced environmental impact for the air traffic system. So some of our members, for example, the FAA, Air Services Australia, NAV Canada, Airways New Zealand, ATNS in South Africa, are already well ahead in terms of implementation. The ASBU Block 0 modules are all based on existing technology, and many of the more developed air navigation service providers have already implemented much of this. And some, some may never reach full achievement within the 20-year time frame. With the approval of the Global Air Navigation Plan, ICAO has provided the what, but as we often say, it's up to the industry to provide the how. ASBUs are complex to execute, and there are lots of different things to consider. So our task in CANSO is to facilitate and guide those that are implementing. And we're doing this in three specific ways. Firstly, through holding implementation seminars for states and ANSPs across the globe. Secondly, we've produced a very helpful booklet on an introduction to ASBU modules that outline the concept of ASBUs and provides information on how best to proceed with getting them approved and then implementing. The third thing that we're doing is ensuring the availability of high quality and effective training, and that is what I would like to talk about now. At the World ATM Congress, we've announced the launch of a training program on ASBU implementation that will be delivered by the MITRE Corporation as a quality service from CANSO. The 5-day course is called Methodology and Best Practices for ASBU Implementation. It is for ANSPs, civil aviation authorities, industry partners, and frankly anyone else that's involved in the aviation system modernisation. It's a hands-on course with interactive and practical lectures and exercises. We're running the first course in Singapore in April this year, April 2014, followed by India in May, and then rolled out across the world.